Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, we got some breaking news for you here today. It's official. Donald Trump is officially calling for regime change against the Iranian government. Absolutely insane, if you ask me. So, the aftermath of yesterday's attack, right? Trump bombs 3 nuclear sites in Iran, right? Just plunges the United States onto the brink of war with a foreign adversary, right? This is something that the people don't want in the United States. This is something that people have been lied to about, saying that Iran is producing nuclear weapons, which is not true, and our own intelligence agencies actually have confirmed that, right? Look at what Tulsi Gabbard had to say, and Trump just says, wrong! They're not producing. Of course, they're producing nuclear weapons. It's like, no, they're not, bro. Our own intelligence says they weren't. That they're not doing it. And besides, this wouldn't be an issue anyways if you actually didn't pull out of the JCPOA, the Iran deal, which Donald Trump did back in 2018, I believe, right during his first term in office, which they had full compliance of from an international organization, the International Atomic Energy Association, right? They had full compliance. They were not producing nuclear weapons, right? They could only produce nuclear weapons for, power grids, right, and research. That was it, right? And they were in full compliance with. But of course, Trump has to pull out of it, right? Because he's an absolute sociopath, doesn't know what he's doing, right? Terrible negotiator by his own words, I might add. 10 years ago when he was talking about Obama and Iran, saying that anybody who starts a war with them has no ability to negotiate, which is very clear because well, look at the situation that we're in. And so what did Donald Trump do? He goes on to Truth Social, and he says, it's not politically correct to use the term regime change. But if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change, right? So, oh my God, it's official now, right? He's going after regime change. He just said his end goal. And we kind of already knew this was going to be the case. I mean, tensions were boiling up, and, who knew that Iran was going to be thrown into this in the manner that it did? But the fact is that we knew that once Israel started stuff, we knew that it was going to get pretty bad because the United States is probably going to get involved, right? And this is like the perfect opportunity for him. You can see him licking his lips at joining because the military-industrial complex and his donors, oh my, APEC, they're all excited, right? They really wanted the United States to join that war. And Trump, well, let's be honest, he's bought out by them. And so, why wouldn't he do their bidding? So let's see here. What are some of the potential reasons that you might want an Iranian regime change? Well, the first one here, I don't think there's any credibility to it, but it would be to stop the bomb, right? It's a very thinly pierced veil. Of course, there's no real evidence that Iran is actually producing any nuclear weapons. And, honestly, who could blame them if they were now? I mean, this is absolutely insane, the position that we put them in. And I'm not a fan of the Iranian government. I think they're a terribly ran country. I think that what they do in that country is very backwards, but it doesn't matter. You don't go around, bombing foreign countries and just provoking wars to drag our own citizens into things, right? You got to let things change a little bit more naturally, right? Or it has to come from the boots on the ground in that own country, right? For regime change, right? Like an actual revolution like they had in 1979. Of course, it backfired, but by our standards, but that's what you kind of need to see. And so, the stop the bomb mentality, that's one reason for potential regime change. The other, which is what I think is very, very likely here, is energy security and oil pricing. Hours after the U.S. raids, the Iranian parliament, they voted to close the Strait of Hormuz, the artery for roughly, 20% of global crude. So, an analysts are now warning that price of oil is going to skyrocket, right? So you can be very excited for that here coming up soon. So not good at all, right? And the regime change would fix that, right? We'd be more sympathetic to United States interest, much like when we had the Iranian-backed leader, the Shah, back in 1953, where we had very sympathetic policies towards oil, right? So we can get cheaper oil, and we always have a steady supply of it, right? And you can manipulate the market in that way. We also have, shielding Israel and other from other regional aggressors, right? So you shield them because, they're relatively in the region there. Obviously, duh, they're at war with Iran. So think about how insane that is. So now we're just going to back Israel, right? A genocidal regime committing genocides. Is this... People say like to stand up to Hitler. It's like, but then we got him right in front of us, the Nazi regime right in front of us, and we don't do anything, right? So, I mean, I don't know what the difference is between the Nazis killing Jews or the Jews killing Palestinians, for instance, right? I mean, like, genocide's a genocide. Call it what it is. Sometimes a cigar is a cigar, as Freud would say. At least I think that's something that Freud would say. I'm pretty sure. I think that's where the saying's from. But it's absolutely insane, right? So, one would be another reason here. Military-industrial complex, they're obviously getting a windfall of cash. They're going to be super, 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 super excited because they now get to get a lot of money in their pockets, right? And all the politicians who got elected by the military-industrial complex, they might be seeing another term here if they're going to vote, to really start things up here with Iran and not vote to, impeach Donald Trump or not vote to try to, vote to shield him from all these crimes here. I think this is an unconstitutional attack. I don't think that there's any reason whatsoever that he should be protected from doing this. So the military-industrial complex is another reason for that coup there. I think that one's obviously, I think that's obviously valid for that regime change that Trump is calling for. I think that's an accurate reason, I should say. Then we also have remaking the regional balance of power, right? So think about it this way, right? A sympathetic Tehran is really going to solidify U.S. interests in terms of all trade, so not just trade with regards to oil, but trade in general. And then, of course, you could also argue this, although I don't think this is the case, that domestic politics in the United States and our ideology, you might want to see that elsewhere, right? For example, they treat women absolutely terribly. They're second-class citizens in Iran. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. Have you ever seen the movie? I believe it, Not Without My Daughter. That's kind of what goes on in those countries, right? And obviously we want no part of it. But I don't think that the politicians really care about that. So even if it is a valid concern, they don't care. And besides the point too, let's be honest here. It's still our business, right? So even if that were on the agenda, right? I mean, I would argue that, look, maybe we should, maybe take an interest to some degree, but certainly not like this, right? Obviously, you could, try to, protest and whatnot in your own streets, but to go over to a foreign country and just start bombing it, dragging our own citizens, our own troops into the brink of war where we could potentially die now, that's terrible. And this is going to be way worse than Iraq. Iran is a much richer and a much bigger country. So now, forget Iraq. This is going to be way worse when we get involved in a war with this here, economically, as well as the lives lost. And so, keep the United States in your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. Keep the United States in your thoughts. And this is not good at all. And this is false pretenses, right? It's no different. This is like the same playbook from Iraq, the weapons of mass destruction and whatnot, right? It's like, holy boy, there's no evidence of that. And I'm very sympathetic to the people who like to call for the overthrow of Saddam Hussein, right? Because he did murder 2 million people. Like, anybody murders 2 million people, like, yeah, you should probably look to get the like, come on now, let's be honest, right? We all know what I'm thinking here, and so that's insane. And so I don't even know why you can't say that too, right? If you even mention that, people go insane, right? And there were chemical weapons that were found, and U.S. citizens actually even died from that. But there was no nuclear bombs that were being made, and that project was suspended. I believe there's a great book called "The Bomb in My Garden," and so something to look into there. But false pretenses is what we went into the war with, and that's not okay. The U.S. citizens are being lied to right now, and we're about to be dragged into a war over this, right? Over this, and this is really terrible. So, official, he's calling for regime change, ladies and gentlemen. The proof is in the pudding. It's right there on screen. You can see the Truth Social post. Look it up yourself if you want to. But this is not good. We should be taken to the streets over this. This is terrible. Be sure to speak up, vote out your politicians who support this, and hopefully we can all live better lives sometime here in the future, although it doesn't look to be anytime soon, unfortunately. So, ladies and gentlemen, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. We got to 104 subscribers. I'd like to see us get to 111. Wouldn't that be a great goal for this video? Who knows? We'll see. But ladies and gentlemen, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.